Hello, beautiful humans. This is Leashia from Ethical Wellness Programs, and you are listening to the Heal in Motherhood podcast, the show that combines the science of the mind-body connection and trauma research, along with spiritual teachings and practical tools to help women heal their lives from the inside out and reclaim their inner goddess, while showing up as the person, parent, and partner they came here to be. If you like what you hear on today's show, please don't forget to leave us a review on the iTunes podcast app so that we can grow our community and impact as many women's lives as possible. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm really excited because today I've got something a little bit different, I guess, for you. So I've got Nicole on, and she's the owner of Griff & Co. And she's a wife and a mum to 4 children. And along her motherhood journey, she's learned a lot through the various challenges that she's faced while raising her kids. And her 3 eldest children have gone through the process of diagnosis of various medical and behavioural issues that have been a source of both hardship and growth throughout the years. So Nicole has shared her journey with others on a number of different platforms, but most recently she found a passion for sewing and creating. And this passion has inspired her to create her own online business. And she now creates handmade clothing and accessories for babies and children, and also supporting mums through motherhood via her blog and providing handmade self-care products and useful items to make mums' lives easier. So Nicole, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I just love this journey that you've talked about. You know, you've gone through, and I think that really sums up motherhood in some ways, is there's both the hardship and the growth. It's like the combination of the challenge and also the magic all rolled into one. You know, it's hard to really describe motherhood, I think, to people that haven't had that experience yet. And I feel like that sums up beautifully, really, how your journey's turned out for you. And now you're creating a beautiful business around that as well. And I've been onto your little storefront and had a look at some of your beautiful, and I can see them in the video here as well, some of your beautiful items that you've been sewing and pouring your love into. And yeah, I just think it's so beautiful. And yeah, it's a great mission. So did you want to tell us a little bit more about your journey and why you decided to create this business?
Sure. So I had kids quite young. I was 21 when I had my eldest, William. And most of our friends and family members hadn't had children yet or anything like that. And it was a little bit of a lonely road. And, Will was perfect first baby, just couldn't have asked for an easier baby. He was wonderful in so many ways. And then when we welcomed our second son, things started to change a little bit. We faced some challenges we just weren't expecting. It wasn't as if there was from day one, we noticed something or found something that was different with him. It was a gradual thing. So, we encountered lots of behavioural issues and things that we were not prepared for in the slightest. And, trying to raise a newborn as well as a toddler who was facing that was really tricky. Then over the years, we welcomed our third son, Thomas. So we had William, then Jacob, and then Thomas came along, and we're in the throes of school, kinder, and a baby, and it was wild. It was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of comments like, oh, you've got your hands full, and lots of people thinking we were crazy. And the comments you get over the years can sometimes be a bit frustrating, but it was a lot. And then just before Thomas started school, I thought, my goodness, these early years I've just been dealing with appointments and chasing up doctors and doing assessments and all of these things. I was studying, we were building a house, all things all at once. It was just a lot. And so I decided I need something just for me, something to be passionate about. And I discovered a love for sewing and went from there. And I thought, hey, maybe I could turn this into something that I could do from home, because at the time I wasn't able to hold a job down with how often I was being called out to school and things like that with the kids. So then then that's where Griffin Co. sort of bloomed from. And now we've welcomed a fourth baby, which, maybe is even more insane. But I finally got a little girl, which was lovely. And so, I'm not able to do as much sewing at the moment, but we're trying to branch out and see what else we can offer through that. But kind of feel through my blog I'm able to share some things that maybe, might be going through or facing, and hopefully can help some people that way.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. That's such a beautiful story. And motherhood isn't always easy or the journey that we expect it's going to be, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
There's definitely hardship and growth within that journey.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of second guessing yourself, getting people to take you seriously, because often what you're dealing with at home is very hard to then translate to somebody when you're trying to explain what's happening and putting it into the right context for someone to understand how serious it might be, or, it has been a lot for us, and a lot of loneliness, I think, has come with that. But over the years, once we did have a diagnosis and things, especially for William, and then through that finding, a tribe of other mums who were on that same path, it has been really empowering, and it's just sort of made it all more manageable on an everyday basis, knowing that you're not on your own in it, which is good.
Yeah, and I feel like that is a really big thing in motherhood. A lot of mums, especially at the beginning of your journey, and like what you said, if you're one of the first to maybe have children within your group, or you've had kids a bit younger and your other friends don't really understand that journey yet, it can feel really lonely and unsupported. And even if you do have friends around you that are maybe having children at the same time, everyone's so on their own journey that it really can feel isolating. And then if there's extra things on top of that, like if you're dealing with a traumatic birth, or finding out a diagnosis or a medical condition, or your own chronic pain, or if you've got a layer of stuff on top of that as well, it can feel hard to actually maintain those friendships and feel supported in that, and it's not feel sort of like heavy and hard as well. It's like, another thing that I've got to do. And I think this really does, that's why, and you highlighted that in your blog post, is finding your tribe, and why that is so important on our journey. Because it's just nice to have people there, I guess, that you do feel understood by.
You can call on your family. I mean, I'm very blessed to have my family and my husband's family who are enormously supportive of us, and they're wonderful. We've got people to vent to and things like that, but it's not the same as the people who really understand going through the same sort of muddy water that you're in. Having someone else around who, when you're dealing with a child at school pickup or drop off who's just not coping, and you're, trying to be calm because there's people everywhere, and all it takes is just a friendly look from one of those parents who has been in that spot before and just gets it, and it's a totally different feeling. So it is a different sort of support. It's definitely not to say that family and other friends are not supportive. It's just that difference of knowing that that person has been in your shoes before, and that's really helpful. I think it can be hard to find those people sometimes, and it definitely didn't come straight away. It was over a little bit of time. But I'm very grateful to those people, especially when you've got a child who maybe struggles to make friendships and things, and then their birthday comes around, you know, those people are going to rock up no matter what, and they're going to be there. And sudden this kid has, you know, 20 people at a birthday, may not have been there before. So there's things like that that make it really lovely.
Yeah. So where was it, do you think, that you really sort of found your tribe?
I think it was really once William was at school, probably more towards the end of the first year of school. William was diagnosed with autism during grade prep, and it had been years, so from when he was 2 until when he was 5.5 or so, before I really found somebody who was willing to hear me out properly and then do an assessment. And it was glaringly obvious that I wasn't crazy all those years. And it was really amazing for Will that even though he now had like a label, which was also a different journey on its own, as accepting that label your child now has, it opened a lot of doors for him. And then, you know, you also find that somebody else who can identify that their child has another label, you sort of link in with those people and go, oh, and, you know, sharing journeys with each other and find, hey, we're on the similar wavelength here. And that's kind of where it happened. And I think it takes a bit of bravery to talk to those parents. And, you know, it's sort of like being in a lunchroom at school and you're like, you know, can I sit with you sort of thing. You know, eventually, yeah, they were our biggest supporters and still are, even though we're not at the same school as a lot of those people. We're still very much supportive of each other.
Oh, that's beautiful. There's something so powerful in sharing stories and just having that deeper level of sort of understanding and connection. I think we all need that on our motherhood journey. And there was something else that you said on the blog post, which was your first sort of thoughts for new special needs parents. And that was you said you're allowed to grieve. And I thought that, yeah, it just really struck a chord with me. So I'd love you to sort of explain that a little bit more for our listeners and what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, it was a term that I sort of came across on something else that I'd read along the years. And I was kind of like, oh, that's right. That's sort of what I'm feeling, because I think especially with a first child, it's your first baby, you imagine all the things you're going to do with your kid and as a family unit. And then your child comes along and, you know, everything might be wonderful for a while, or it might be hard from the day one, you know, depending on your circumstances, but it just isn't what you imagined it would be.
Yeah.
And I think it was really like therapeutic for me to actually have that moment of grieving that imaginary life that I had made in my mind. And I think once you've allowed yourself to kind of grieve for those things, you can move on to go, okay, but what are the things that we can work with now? I grew up in a very, very active family. We were always busy, or we had an extracurricular thing on every day of the week. We were very involved in sports and music and all of those things. And now I have this little boy who, you know, thinks walking 5 meters is a chore. And I'm like, is not interested at all in most things that I grew up knowing. So it's been hard. Like, how do you then relate to him if I haven't shared his interests before? How do I build that relationship with him? So kind of adjusting your expectations and thinking, well, all right, okay, well, I'm not going to have a kid who's a pro basketballer. My son is probably going to be the next Elon Musk. And look how wonderful that's going to be for him when he finds what he's passionate about. And that's been one of the biggest learning curves is your child isn't you. And, you know, your child is not going to have your childhood. He's going to have his own path. And I think that's something kind of magical about figuring out what your child is so passionate about. And I think despite whatever diagnosis they might have, there's something that they will be passionate about, you know, and you just sort of run with it that way. But yeah, that grieving part, I think is a real thing, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, I think, either. Like you're not wishing your child away or wishing they were different.
Yeah.
It's just grieving that life you'd imagined that you were going to have.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so important, and I feel like this is probably something that I sort of really help mothers with, is allowing them to actually have that space to grieve, or have that space to be angry or frustrated, or say what it is that they can't maybe say to someone else, because they might call call child
Yes.
service protection.
Oh, I know.
But I feel like it's a lot of the time we go through the process of motherhood and we don't allow ourselves those spaces to, even something as simple, and this is nowhere near on the level what you've experienced, but even just the process of, like, my daughter going to school the 5 days a week. Over the Christmas holidays, I've been grieving and I've been really sad, and I've been really feeling into those feelings and allowing myself to process that. And there's so many points in motherhood that we grieve, there's so many transitions, and there's so many next steps. And sometimes we can just rush past that process of and be like, oh no, it's really positive, and only see the silver lining. Or, like you said, go straight to the processes of, okay, what is it do I need to do next? How can I help my child? Going straight from diagnosis to what do we do next? Instead of having that space to be like, oh, this really isn't what I'd hoped for. This really isn't what I expected. And it all comes back to, our expectations. And our expectations, we can shift and we can change those. But I think if we don't allow ourselves that space first to really say, this isn't what I wanted or what I expected, it just allows us to be honest and open, but not manifesting it. We're not staying there. We're just allowing that to pass through. So then we can be like, okay, I'm with this new idea of how life is now going to look, and how can we make it better for me and for my child and the family unit moving forward. So I thought as well, reminding yourself that you're not your child.
Yeah.
And I think we can get so caught up in parenthood of what we want our child to be like and what we expect them to be like, and how we want parts of our childhood to be parts of their childhood. And there's so many things that we project onto our children. And it really does come back to this sort of self-awareness and, realizing that we're not our child, they're their own human being, and no matter what we do, they're going to live how they want to live, and we're there to support and guide, not to control and direct them in the path that we want them to go down.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of in the throes of that, especially right now, because William's now in year 8 at school. I think those early childhood years, you're kind of opening the doors to all the experiences. So, in primary school, let's try basketball, let's try guitar lessons, let's do this or that, whatever they want to do, because they change their mind every 5 seconds. But, let's just have a go. And then when you get to that stage, William's, this is a classic example, his report at the end of school last year, he got academic awards for Japanese and maths, and all of his scores all through the year were almost 100%.
Wow.
It was amazing to me, because I can't do maths to save myself, and he loves to rub that in my face. But he did so brilliantly well in those two, and then all the other subjects, it was, very low marks or work not even submitted. And we had that conversation with him about how you need to kind of set yourself up for the future. And he says, well, I'm not interested in those things, so I don't really care. And I said, yeah, fair enough. You don't have to be interested in everything you do, and you don't have to like everything. I don't like a lot of things I do either, but unfortunately, at the end of your schooling life, if you want to go, for example, and go and do computer science, they're not just going to grade you on how well you did in, maths and Japanese. They're going to grade you across the board. And so, I'm not asking you to get straight A's. I would never ask that of him. All I'm asking is that you just submit the work. Just give it a go. You don't have to be great at everything, but you have to just give it a go. In that challenge where we're going, okay, this is Will, this is his interest, and that's what he's going to do. But we also need to give him those tools to just have a go at things, even when you don't want to as well. And that's been a bit challenging with him. But it's the same with my other kids too. Like, when we say to them, like Thomas has just decided he wants to stop karate and he desperately wanted to try soccer. So we went last night to the soccer tryout. And it was very full on. He comes running off halfway through. We're not doing this. I'm not doing it. Oh. And I thought, well, you've had a go and you can tick that off and you can rule it out now. But they're all so different, and it's all just having a go at things and, accepting that they're all going to just follow their own path. It doesn't kind of really matter how much you might push in one area or another. In the end, they're their own person. And I it makes me really appreciate my own parents even more over the years as well. Like, I think in the first couple of years of parenthood, you're like, well, I'm not going to do this even though my parents did it, because, I have different ideas and opinions because I'm going to be my own parent.
Yeah.
And you've got your parents saying, oh, back in my day, we never did this or that. And while sometimes it can be helpful, other times really want to form your own pathway. But it sort of made me really appreciate the fact that my parents had a lot of challenges in their own personal lives, as well as their own their parenting journey, as well as that each individual one of my siblings deal with while trying to parent me. So it kind of makes you look back at your own, teenage years especially, and kind of go, oh my gosh, I was giving them such a hard time, but they were they were dealing with so many things at the one time. I think no matter what child you have or how many children or whatever, you still might be dealing with relationship issues and money problems and, medical things of your own on top of your children. So I think everyone just kind of has to give themselves a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And, having those moments to kind of go, this isn't what I really was thinking was going to happen. It gives you that chance to just breathe for a minute and go, okay, it's not going that way. We're going to just shift it now and go, okay, well, what can we do about it? Where are we going to go from here? I think that's really important for everyone to kind of go through that process, and it can kind of shock you when it comes up, I guess.
Yeah.
Different age groups or whatever thing you might be facing at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you feel you found most beneficial on your motherhood journey so far?
It's kind of hard to answer that, really. I think if I was really to try and sum it up, it would just be that, everything that your child is going through, you're also going through, and it's always a chance to learn and grow and change or evolve in some way. Through my own children and watching them overcome struggles, and even if they were feeling horrible for the day, still getting through a school day and things like that, I've watched them succeed, even if they're small things, to jumping over those hurdles and things, I think has made me as an individual kind of go, we can do it. We need the right encouragement, and whether that comes from, an outside source, or if you learn those tools to encourage yourself, I think that's really important. And then you start to achieve things for your own self too. I think you've got to sort of not forget that you're not just a mother. Like, your life isn't, just because you've got children, your life isn't only about your motherhood. It's about yourself as an individual too. But you can learn so much from the things you witness your kids doing and achieving or struggling through, and use all of those things you've learned to go, hey, I'm going to do something that's just for me, even if it's 5 minutes a day. Because I went through that time of forgetting myself amongst motherhood, and that part of me starting my little business was something that was just for me to achieve as well as using it as a tool to have some downtime and something to be passionate about that wasn't just about parenting. I kind of ended up being the go-to person for a lot of people talking about children with additional needs. Even teachers at the school my kids were at were saying, oh, you should go talk to Nicole because she'll know stuff. And I was more than happy to share things with people, like, absolutely. And I gained a lot of friendships from that. But in the end, I was like, I'm not just a special needs mum. I'm also a mum to a brilliant, amazing kid who is separate from that diagnosis. And I'm also a mother to 3 other amazing children. And I'm also just me.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just be all about additional needs and things. It is something really important and close to my heart to talk about as well.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think what I'm hearing you say to mothers that are listening out there is find something of your own that gives you the joy or lights you up or that you're passionate about that you can have and do just for you.
Yeah.
But what else I heard you say was, and this gets talked about 100 times over on my podcast and all the time, but we can learn so much from our children and they can help us build resilience. You know, we're not just teaching them, they are always teaching us if we're open to learning and listening and being more equal in our relationship with them. It's not always got to be us giving. We can receive a lot from them if we're open to it as well, which I think is a really beautiful message.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for any parents who do have children with additional needs, the kids are not just in that category either. I think sometimes when you get immersed in that world of whatever it is, whether you're connecting with other parents who share children with the same medical diagnosis or, you know, of a health condition or anything, you kind of have to remember too to look beyond that as well. It's not all about I've even had some therapists in the past say, oh, well, your child's sort of in this box now. You'd be better off staying sort of in that box and making friends within that box. And then that's immersing yourself in that world. And I think for a small time that was helpful. But that box is one box in the world. There's so much else around them. And you've got to kind of help your child and help yourself learn to, yes, be very aware and accepting and embracive of the condition, whatever it is that they have, but also things and filtering in things of the rest of the world and kind of putting it all together. I think you don't have to like just be in that category of motherhood or of children.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's really important to have those friendship groups and family members and that of all different walks of life, because you can learn from all of those things too. Even if somebody doesn't understand exactly what it's like to have a child at home who's causing a lot of difficulty, maybe they could be the person that you sort of escape with and just, you know, have conversation. It's not about all of that for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's just really important to not categorize yourself so much too.
Yeah, like I think it's important you know, that you get the diagnosis and allow that to, you know, take the things that you need from it and leave what you don't. And the label is not something that you need, you know, you don't have to keep yourself under that label and, like you say, in that little box. It's just there to support you moving forward, so you've got a better understanding and you know better, you've got some better tools to actually be able to support your child in that capacity. Because I think a lot of probably some of my listeners, they would be more on the cautious side of wanting to use labels or get diagnoses because, you know, I don't want my kid to be labeled or put in a box. But I think there's an importance in that, but also, like you said, they're not constraining yourself then to that and being like, oh, we can't do this because my boy's autistic, or we can't do this because XYZ, you know. That really shows how difficult, I guess, that it is to live in this society where we do have such a stigma around mental health and also disabilities and health conditions, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just tell us a little bit more about your business and what you're doing. So what is it that you offer, and a little bit about your blog, and then we'll finish up for today.
Yeah, sure. So I specialize sort of in making baby and toddler range of clothing, and I really love to use like really soft, stretchy fabrics and things. I think my main focus is making sure whatever they're wearing is not only really cute but just easy to play in and really comfortable. I feel like so many of the like really cute little outfits are sometimes quite restrictive when they're playing.
Yeah.
My kids wouldn't have dealt with that at all. So
No.
yeah, that's kind of the fabrics I use are always soft and stretchy and yeah, just very easy to throw on and play in. That's sort of my main focus. And yeah, just some accessories that kind of go with it that, you know, are just fun and cute. I also love to make really like fun, silly looking prints. I think if you can't run around in something really leery and crazy when you're a toddler, like when can you do it? I love to use really fun looking prints for the kids too, and just different to what's in a lot of big chain stores and things like that.
Yes.
For mums, at the moment, I do make a few things that just kind of make things easier, like school drop-offs and stuff. If you can't, I don't know, like me, I'm trying to carry however many school bags and whatever else, and I never know where to put my keys, and I was getting sick of trying to shove them down my top because I don't have big enough boobs to hold it all. So I just came up with a few things that would just make just everyday life for mums a bit easier. So I've got a little range of that, and sometimes we include products from other local small businesses to make some Mother's Day hampers and things. So
oh, gorgeous.
Past we've used some beautiful shower steamers and things from another local business in the Yarra Valley in Victoria. So yeah, I kind of like to partner with other little small businesses as well to create things like that. So yeah, and with my blog, I kind of post when I can. I don't have a really regular time that I upload things. It's really just I'm trying to be a bit more realistic about my time.
Yeah.
It's just sort of when something comes to me that I go, hey, I reckon that could probably help someone, I'll write something
Beautiful.
and pass it on. So I did actually have a blog on another platform, which I closed a couple of years ago, and I will slowly start to refresh those blog posts and upload them over time. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at. I've got a big market coming up on the weekend, so I'm trying to frantically prepare for that at the moment. So yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I will put everything in the show notes on how to connect with you, and also the blog and all that as well. And I think that you put in there as well that there was a special code for listeners.
Yes.
That if they wanted to buy something, then there's also a little code in there so they could get, was it 15% off or something?
Yeah, 15% off your total order, and yeah, just using the code podcast, and you can pop that in at the checkout.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you for coming and sharing your time with us today. I've really enjoyed our little chat.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely to meet you.
Yeah, and you. So if you've got any listeners, if you've got any feedback on the podcast, please reach out to me or reach out to Nicole. I'm sure she would be happy to answer any questions that you've got. And yeah, we will see you all next week. Namaste.